Well, hello again everybody, and welcome to another episode. A 50mm lens is a very versatile focal length, and no photographer should be without one in their kit. But there are so many vintage 50mm available that it can be very difficult to choose your first one and decide which one you should buy. So I brought together 5 of my favourite 50mm f1.8 lenses for you to check out today. We've got the 55mm f1.8 Auto Takumar from Pentax. We've got the Olympus Zuiko 50mm f1.8, a very nice lens. We've got the Pentacon 1.8 50mm, that's an East German lens. We've got, this is another East German lens, the Meyer Optik Oreston 1.8 50mm. And finally we've got a lens that really is my gold standard for judging 50mm, certainly 1.8s, and that's the Carl Zeiss Jena Pancolar 1.8 50. So without further ado, let's check out the first of today's lenses, and that is this lovely little thing. This is the Meyer Optik Oreston. So I'll just show you this lens. It's a very beautifully made thing. Like most vintage lenses, it's all metal, and it's a very, very nicely made piece of kit. You can see here that it's a rather handsome sort of lens, as well as many vintage lenses are. It's got this polished aluminium section here. The aperture ring is at the back, which is this control. Focus ring is at the front, and in fact one very nice feature that this lens has, that it shares with several East German lenses actually, is that it has a very short minimum focus distance of 33. I think it'll probably get down to about 30 centimeters, this lens, and I think that's a really cool feature to have on any lens. It makes it really versatile, and I don't know why the Western manufacturers of the time didn't do the same, because these East German lenses are really great, pretty much all of them, for their minimum focus distance. This is not the sharpest lens that I've ever encountered. I wouldn't call it a soft lens, but certainly wide open. It's not the sharpest of these 1.8s. However, what this does have is character. This lens has a really nice feel to its images. It's very hard to put my finger on exactly what it is. The colours seem to have a great deal of depth and resonance, and it just has it has an X factor that is very, very difficult to put your finger on, very, very difficult to define, but the images that come out of this little lens are really nice. I very much like them, and they do have a filmy sort of feel. The colours remind me of film. The depth of the image reminds me of film. It does vignette quite a bit when you shoot it wide open, and pretty much all of these lenses will do that. All the lenses we're looking at today will do that, and in fact it's difficult to find a vintage lens that doesn't do that. However, what it does do is sharpen up a lot when you stop it down to 5.6, and the vignetting pretty much disappears. This is not a perfect lens. It won't make you perfect images in the way that a modern lens will do, but what it will do is make you very pleasing images, very likable images. And with a lens like this, you won't worry too much about technical aspects like sharpness and vignetting and all those other things that people sometimes feel are so important, because this is a lens with character. This is a lens that makes really pleasing, really likable images. It's a very affordable lens too. They tend to sell for around £40 to £50, and at that price this is well worth picking up. So the next lens I'd like to look at is the 51.8 from Olympus, the Zuiko Auto S, and this is a very nice piece of glass. It really is a lovely little thing. As far as I'm aware, there were 3 or possibly 4 versions of this lens. There was the original silver nose version with a silver band around the nose here, and there were 3 black nose versions. This is the final version. We are rather overexposed there, my goodness. This is the final version, and you'll see that it says made in Japan around the ring here. This is said to be the nicest version of the lens. This lens has a different feel to the Oreston that we've just looked at. It's rather more of a modern look to its images. The images it makes are lighter, they're clearer, they have more of a crispness, more of a contrasty look. The colours are stronger and deeper. The Oreston has great colours, it's true, but the ones from this lens just seem to fizz and sparkle and pop somehow. They really are very, very nice indeed, and this is one of the nicest lenses I've seen actually for colour representation. It's a trait among the Zuiko lenses, they're well known for it, and this one certainly continues that tradition. It's sharp, wide open, it's sharper than the Oreston, no doubt about it, and if you close it down to 5.6, it's very, very sharp indeed. I think a shade sharper than most of the other lenses we're going to look at today. I think it has a little swirl as well in its background blur if you shoot it wide open. There's just a hint of movement in some of the foliage shots that I made, and that's very nice. I do like the blur from this lens. It's dynamic, it moves, it's not still, it has energy about it, and it, even if you stop it down, it preserves that, and it gives your images a very dynamic, very lively sort of feel. Is this the nicest Zuiko 1.8, the made in Japan version, as reputation would have it? I would say, based on my experience of all the versions of this lens, yes, this is the nicest version. No doubt about it. It's a very, very nice lens indeed. Is it a Pancolar killer? Well, I'm really not sure, but one thing's for certain, there isn't a great deal in it either way. These lenses tend to go for between £40 to £70 or thereabouts. You'll sometimes see higher prices asked for them, £80, £90, even £100. Those are inflated prices, and you shouldn't pay those prices. You should be able to find a good version of this lens and pay no more than £50. And at that price, this is a real bargain. So let's check out our next lens. Next we're going to look at the Pentax Auto Takumar 55mm f1.8, and this is a really nice lens. These are quite cheap actually, and they're very, very nicely made. All the Takumar lenses are extremely nicely made. Have a look at this one and you'll see that it's a very beautiful thing. These lenses really are made well, and this one illustrates that point very, very nicely indeed. It was in very bad condition when it came to me. The glass was good, but it had obviously been very badly neglected over the years. It was very dirty, it needed a lot of cleaning. There was a lot of dust and grime and muck all over it, but when I cleaned it up, apart from a slight fading of its nice black finish to a bluish sort of shade, it's as good as the day it was made. These lenses are absolutely mighty in their construction. They're some of the best lenses ever made. This lens is very sharp, wide open, and I was quite surprised by that when I initially tested it. It's not quite as sharp as the Pancolar, I don't think, although it may be, it's very difficult to tell these things subjectively, it may be around about as sharp as the Zuiko is. But it does give a very different look to the Zuiko. It's a calmer sort of look. What do I mean by that? The colours are rather muted. They're just that little bit more muted. It's very much the Pentax house style, and it's a look that I like very much. It's not my favourite look, actually. I do prefer a slightly higher contrast look most of the time. The colours are strong. They've got plenty of depth. They've got plenty of body, but they do have that sort of pastel-y Pentax look to them. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is a matter of personal taste, of course, so I'm not going to rate that. It has very nice blur without too many harsh spots. Most lenses have some harsh spots somewhere along the way if you get the distance, rather as you change the distances between the lens, the subject, and the background. This lens is pretty much unflappable. There are hardly any harsh spots in this lens, and the blur stays nice and smooth all the way. It does have some vignetting, as all these 51.8s do, but it disappears when you stop down to 5.6, and the lens becomes very, very sharp indeed at 5.6. So just like all these other lenses, it's sharp at that point, but it's also sharp wide open, which is a real nice thing if you want it, if that's what you value in a lens. Usually you can buy these from around £30. Don't pay any more than £40 or so for one of these. There were so many made. It was sold with pretty much it was a kit lens rather for every Spotmatic camera that was sent out pretty much. So there are millions of these around, so you shouldn't really pay much more than 40 quid for a very, very nice one, and it's well worth investing in this little lens. Next, let's have a look at this little lens. This is the Pentacon Auto 1.8 50mm. Let's have a closer look over here, and there is the lens, and just like all vintage lenses, or most anyway, it's all metal. It's constructed very nicely. The aperture rings at the back, the focus rings at the front. Everything turns smoothly. There's no roughness, there's no harshness. So these are very nicely made lenses, and just like all of the East German lenses that I've yet encountered, it has a very close focusing distance of, let's have a look, well, it says 0.33 meters on the scale, and it goes just past that. So I'd say, like the Oreston, this one is going to go down to about 30 centimeters or thereabouts. Now, as I understand it, this lens was derived from a Meyer Optik design. I don't know if it's a straight Meyer Optik clone, I don't know, but it was derived from the Meyer Optik company, and in fact it's a very similar lens. The bokeh is similar, the sharpness is similar, but it does have a cooler look. The Meyer is very warm and it has that fullness and that depth, whereas the Pentacon is cooler and it does have a rather different look. Wide open, it's not quite as sharp as the Zuiko or the Pentax. Just like all these lenses, it gets much sharper by 5.6, and pretty much all the vignetting disappears. They are all alike in that respect. And if you shoot this lens at 5.6 and the Pentax or the Zuiko at 5.6, you're not going to see that much difference in the image, certainly in the sharpness of the image that's produced. It's got nice blur. It does have a couple of harsh points, but they're easy enough to shoot around, and if you're shooting close, wide open, it makes lots of lovely bubbles in the backgrounds from point light sources. These are not expensive lenses at all. They're cheaper than the Meyer Optik version. These go for around about £30 to £40, but you shouldn't have to pay more than £30 for one in good condition. Again, there were millions of them made, and that is reflected in the price. A very nice lens and a very cheap lens too. Finally then, let's have a look at this lens, the Pancolar, Carl Zeiss Jena Pancolar from East Germany, and this is just about the sharpest of these lenses wide open. This really is quite an extraordinary lens. I've tested this quite a few times, and it continues to astonish me. It's the sharpest wide open, but there's no real difference at 5.6. If you close this lens down to 5.6, pretty much it's the same as all the others. Very sharp, very little vignetting, but wide open, my goodness, this is sharp. It's sharper than the Zuiko by just a hair. It's sharper than the Pentax also by just a hair. This is a very, very sharp lens indeed. Let's have a closer look at it. The colours on this lens are spectacular, and you may be able to see the reason for that, I think, or a lot of the reason for that is this coating that you can just see on the lens there, reflected in the light. Colours from this lens are like those from no other. They really are quite spectacular. It's quite a conventional lens in construction, focus rings at the front, like all vintage lenses or all that I've tried. It's all metal. The aperture rings at the back, so very conventional in its construction and layout. It has the same close focus ability as the other two East German lenses here, which is, let's have a look. Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same. On the scale, this one goes down to 0.35 meters, 35 centimeters. It's going to be around that, or perhaps a bit less. A very good feature from the East German lenses. This lens has that X quality that makes it a star. I still haven't found a lens to beat this one. The Zuiko, however, does come close. It's very, very nearly a Pancholar killer. This is still the nicest 50 I've tried, all things considered, but I think the Zuiko is 99% of the way there. It really is a worthy contender to this lens. This is the most expensive lens here by some considerable margin. Good ones of these go for around £100 to £150. So although this lens does, I think, still just by a hair give the nicest image, it's the best lens, but it's not the best value lens. That accolade goes to our Japanese newcomer, and that's the Zuiko 51.8. For the price these go at, for what these lenses can do, this is the best value, I think, from this selection here today. And a good one of these shouldn't cost you any more than £50. So there we are, 5 beautiful little 50mm f1.8 vintage lenses. All of them are widely available. All of them have a special character, and they'll give your look a unique image that only that lens can make. Which is right for you? Well, look's going to be a factor in that choice. Price is going to be a factor in that choice. My recommendations: the best lens of this group is the Pancolar. The best value lens of this group is the Zuiko, closely followed by the Pentax. The Meyer Optik Oreston is a beautiful lens and it gives you a very filmy, very old school look. The Pentacon gives you a cooler look, but it's very nearly the same as the Meyer Optik in every other sense, and it's the cheapest lens here, going for about 30 quid. Which is best for you, you decide. So that's it from me for now. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and ring that bell before you go. And if you like the content on this channel and you'd like to help it grow and develop, you can do that at patreon.com/Zenography. As ever, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time for some more Zenography.